how we're gonna see that as a one thing? See this? I want to see the whole thing, relate them together as become one single object. Before you divide them into individual, I want them to be together as a one big shape. So now when you're at this stage, you want to double check on, do I want it to be that size or want it to be in this location? So you know what? I'm going to move this a little bit more to the right. And I'm going to make this a little bit higher over here. And maybe just a little bit lower, like this, a little bit lower. And I want this object a little bit more to the right. Just because I'm going to keep the cast shadow on the left side. So this step is very important because you are going to make up your mind for the composition. And after you move on from this step, that defines how your final painting would look like. It's important, right? And if I like this composition, that's good. Now I divide it. Now I have this light color bottle is right here. I'm going to put it down like this. And I have this a little bit lower, like over here. Right there. I'm going to make it a little bit lower in this case. I'll make it lower. I think it's too high to that. The angle of both sides is like this. And the bottom over here, like this. Let's take a look at the width of the bottle compared to the height of the bottle. And you squint your eye, you're going to figure that out. I'm going to give a little bit of detail in the middle over here. The middle over here is a little bit wider this width. So if I'm going to put this dark vase over here, and this is supposed to be wider than this one. So I'm going to relate that together and coming like this. So you can connect this point to this point to find the angle. So the first thing, composition and proportion. The top over here, there is a two different shape like coming through, and the top is on this side a little bit darker. And now take a look at the apple, the size of the apple, 1, and I think it's almost a little bit less than half. It's about this much. This is the size of the apple. So I relate the apple to this object, so I can take this and put over here. This is about the correct size. So now I'm going to take a look, and this side can come out a little bit at this apple. And take a look at the width compared to the height of the apple. And I think the width a little bit less than the height. The cast shadow is about here. And the cast shadow of the apple is about here. Looking for the shape. Analyze it. That is the cast shadow up here. And the bottom of the wall is about here. Now we already have the placement divided into 1, 2, 3 objects plus the wall. I'm going to shade all the objects in a different tone. That's called local colors. Like the background over here. It's a little bit, it's not really dark, but it's a dark. It should be shaded down a little bit. And the table a little bit lighter, and the wall a little bit darker. And cast shadow by this dark vase. And the apple, I'm going to shade it down to be a little bit darker. The cast shadow is about this value. And this side is about this value. And the background needs to be a little bit darker. Now this needs to be much darker. I keep it rough. So all I try to do is to make the difference between the background, the cast shadow in the background over here, and the white objects, and the dark object, and the medium objects. But obviously this object needs to be much darker. I'm going to make this one even darker. And this probably good. And this one a little bit lighter, like that. It's about this value. So all I try to separate the object because of the local color versus the color of the object, the materials. I think the table over here needs to be a little bit darker as well, because otherwise it would look like the same color as the white of this object. So now this object, the only object is the lightest. If you get to this point, the next would become very easy. Now you go into the smaller and smaller shapes to separate the different value. I'm gonna blend it a little like this. I'm gonna use this charcoal pencil. Now I'm gonna come in over here. Because of the global relationship we already established. The global relationship is between those different objects. We already have them. Now let's see. The top of their base look like this. Maybe open a little bit more. Like that. I can define it a little bit better. Define over here. Now on this side it's darker. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Get a little bit smaller like this. And over here a little bit darker. I'm going to use the eraser to lift up some highlight. Like that. And a little light on the top over here. Like that. And a little light on the top over here. Like this. You're already getting there. Really quick. Okay. Now I'm gonna keep going, and the neck over here, and all the way come down over here is still darker, like this. And come down over here, I'm gonna make it a little lighter by using my finger to lift up a little charcoal, and a little bit over here, a little bit like this. And maybe in the middle over here, I need to use the eraser to make it even lighter. Like that. Now come down to the bottom over here. In the middle over here is darker. So I'm going to use the charcoal pencil, make this darker. And under here, under this area, it has a reflected light. And now at the bottom over here, I have some details. But we don't need to make it too clearly at the bottom. But on this side, I can see that a little darker. And at the edge over here has some reflected light because of the light objects next to it. So now you can see this object looks more and more three-dimensional by adding a little lighter and darker color highlight to the objects. Now coming over here and refine a little bit of the cast shadow of this object, like that. And the bottom of this jar is about here, like that. It has the cast shadow on it and blur a little. Now I'm going to make this the light area a little bit lighter. So after you take care of the bigger relationship, now you can take care of the local relationship within each object. Now coming over here, have a little highlight like this. And this highlight, barely you can see because it's already pretty light. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little highlight over here. That's showing this object is very glassy. Now I'm going to come to the top. Now I'm going to use the eraser. On this side, it's lighter. On the top over here, this round is also a little bit lighter. Like this. All you want to see is a light and dark, light and shadow. And I want you to put a little color over here, but keep in mind, it's not that dark. Because this object, the local color is pretty light. Everything on this object is not that dark. Squint your eye and keep looking at it. All you're going to try to catch is how dark and how light the color. and how the color relate together. Now I'm going to see the light area here come out a little bit. Now I catch that. A little come out a little bit rounded. Right over here and over here a little bit rounded. Like this. A little light shape coming through on the top over here. And I can use my finger to blend the top, have the color a little bit more graduate. Now I keep coming down over here. I can see the shape. Now what to do, I'm just going to carry it for the background over here. I'm going to shape that like this. This is the shape. And now the side over here, you need to fine tune it by using the eraser. The eraser is not correcting mistake. The eraser is draw light shape. And while the charcoal is drawing dark shape. The light shape and dark shape together to create the drawing. And thus the edge a little bit softer, some edge a little bit sharper, and the top over here a little sharper, the bottom here a little bit darker. Before I move away, let's make it this area a little bit darker in the middle over here. And now coming to the apple. Let's take a look. And the apple is very easy. I'll make the shadow side a little bit darker. The shadow side is on this side. You can see the shadow side on this side. So this whole side over here is supposed to be darker. So I'm going to make a little darker tone on here. And then after that, we're going to create a little lighter area on the light side. But before we do that, we're always to organize the whole shape. How dark is it compared to the whole drawing? That is called local color. And now we're going to create the highlight. Where's the location of the highlight? It's right over here. And the stem coming up right over here. And now take a look at the bottom. Now we can see they also have the light coming from this direction. So we can see that have a little light shape over here. And a little light shape over here. So it makes this look like the multiple directions of light make this look like a little bit more shiny apple. Now the cast shadow, we can make it a little bit darker when it's closer to the object. Now let's take a look. And this edge is a little bit more straight. Coming over here to fine tune it. So this is the last step. We're going to organize the relationship a little bit better. Because this background over here darker than the top of the apple here. In that case, I need to make this shape a little bit darker. Can blend the value. And look at that. Between this color and that color, this color a little bit darker. So I'm going to make that a little bit darker than the background. So all you try to look for, it is the connection and also the relationship. Which one is darker, which one is lighter. And the middle over here is this has a little triangle shape over here, a little bit darker. If you don't see it immediately, if you pay attention to it and looking for comparing the value, you can find that relationship. Over here it's a little bit darker, like that. And under here, it has some reflected light. You can see the reflected light over here. From here down, it has reflected the light from the table. And those we can use the eraser to find it. And close to the bottom, it also have a little bit darker, like that. And now, the drawing's almost there. Now come back to look for the little details, say the gap at the bottom, right over here. And look at that over here, it's about in this area. So all of the suggestions at the bottom of the wall. And now come back over here and say, oh, now I'm going to get a little bit more into the detail, correct it. Now looking at the top over here, the shape on this side and the shape on this side. Now you get smaller and smaller details. And compare this color with the outside is darker. So I'm going to move the light. I'm going to make the wall over here a little bit darker. Okay, I'm going to blend it a little. I'm going to use the eraser, making sure it's a little bit lighter inside than the outside. You can draw with the eraser. Now over here, a little bit lighter. And now from here on, you can get smaller and smaller correction, and then the whole drawing will become look more and more realistic. Like over here, we can make a little bit lighter. A little bit lighter like this. You can get the illusion of the glowing effect because of the light. A little highlight over here, stronger. A little highlights here, stronger. This can be a little bit softer. I think this area can be a little bit darker. So you can get the idea of the process, the drawing, and can be as you develop more and more and more, you get more and more details into the drawing. Now on this side, now coming over here, define that. And the bottom over here, the cast shadow over here, and so on. And if you want, you can make this area a little bit darker because the top over here a little bit lighter. So a little bit blend over. So this is called inside local contrast after you're taking care of the global contrast. Now I also want to talk about the function of the wine charcoal and the compressed charcoal or the compressed charcoal pencil. The compressed charcoal is darker and the wine charcoal is softer. Value produced by the wine charcoal is not that dark. So that's why I usually start with the wine charcoal and then compressed charcoal or the compressed charcoal pencil to define a little bit darker value.